The NFL has already begun cutting some players. We talk about who is going to be cut next on the defensive side of the ball, next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Joining me, as always, my partner in crime, Mr. Johnny PayPal. PayPal, how you doing, my friend?
Not too bad, Brad. Not too bad. Surviving the weather up here in Wisconsin. It's been pretty crazy. I didn't drive when the weather's been crazy like this, but I've heard how people have seen all these cars and ditches and on the side of the road and all these accidents going on up here because of the weather. But I've been working remote, so I've been fine.
One of the best things that has ever come out with the COVID stuff, the remote work. I'm full remote, and it's glorious because whenever it snows, it's like, yeah, don't. And now, if I see someone going into the office and they have the option to be remote, it's like, what are you doing? Like, you
Right.
don't, unless you have to, unless like you have to physically be there. Don't go into the office. Stay safe and have as little amount of cars on the road as possible for the people that actually have to go into work so that they can actually go in. So, but yeah, PayPal, we have an awesome show. We've been breaking down a lot about wide receivers. We've talked a little bit about some of the cap casualties from the wide receiver position specifically, right? Last show we did that. Today we are breaking down defensive cap casualties. And PayPal, you alerted me about this right before we went on that Bobby Wagner just got cut. The superstar linebacker from the Rams. He's going to be another one that we're talking about that was off our radar and was cut. There's also a lot more players that could be cut and even potentially a reunion with Khalil Mack. Everybody out there on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe, comment who you would like as we go throughout the show. And also, you can download the podcast. Just search for Unbearable Sports everywhere that you get your podcast. And tomorrow we'll actually release an episode going down the offensive side of the cap casualties because Tennessee Titans releasing Taylor Lewan, something very interesting to look at. But PayPal, let's get this show on the road. Let's talk about this defensive potential cap casualties. As we talked about when we went through the wide receivers, this is already hard enough to predict. I've scoured the internet, found as many out there. So if you see someone that you believe is going to be cut that isn't on this list, let me know. Let us know down in the comments. And if there's somebody that you don't believe, let us know as well. Like I said, my feelings aren't going to be hurt. The writers that I researched on, their feelings will get hurt. But let's go through this list. I started out with the defensive front seven. So what we got going on here is it starts out with defensive tackle Michael Brockers from Detroit. Then we go through the linebackers, CJ Mosley from the Jets, Eric Kendricks from Minnesota. Minnesota does need to clear off a good chunk of cap space. Zach Cunningham just got released. And we also talked about Bobby Wagner just got released as well. But now if we go through the edge position, Bud Dupree from Tennessee, Shaquille Barrett out of Tampa Bay, a lot of cap space. Spoiler alert, there's a lot of Tampa Bay people because they have to just clear a crap ton of cap space. But then also Leonard Floyd, former Bear from the Rams, might be a cut as well. Frank Clark is always rumored to be a cap casualty, but never ends up being that with the Kansas City Chiefs. Romeo Quara from the Detroit Lions. And last but not least, believe it or not, say it ain't so, Khalil Mack is one of a big hot rumor that he is going to get released by the Chargers. PayPal, I would say what stands out to you, but first, it's got to be Khalil Mack. What are your thoughts on Khalil Mack? If he gets released, are you feeling like, let's bring him back? What's your thought?
I guess my first thought, obviously he's a very talented guy. I don't think he's lost that. he obviously was a little injured when we had him on our team, and the last year he was here, he like wasn't as productive as we liked him to be, but that was because again, he was double teamed. He still played a huge game in the running game. Wasn't getting the sack numbers that he was previously, but amazing help on both sides of the ball, which is huge for a defensive end. Um, but yeah, Kulimek, I think if we left off on bad terms with him, it might be a little bit harder to get him back, but I think everything was fine. I don't see any bad terms with us and Khalil Mack, so I I I'm happy to bring back Khalil Mack. He was fabulous when he's on our team. Everyone probably has Khalil Mack jerseys still because
Yeah.
like the first guy, probably not of this decade, but most recently where everyone bought his jersey.
Yep.
Now it's in Fields, but it was like Khalil Mack, and then I don't know, maybe Brian Urlacher was the last one before him, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. I know my kids have 52 jerseys. Like, that's all we had. It's crazy to think, too, that he was on the Bears for 4 years. Like, 4 years with Oakland, 4 years with the Bears. And then last year with the Chargers, played a total of 860 snaps. Yeah, got 8 sacks, 5 hits, 43 hurries. So yeah, like I think overall though, when I watch some of it, he's not as dominant. He's not like the absolute freak of nature when he was out there. But I'm curious to see what type of a market he would command if he did get released. And like you said too, I'm curious about him as a first off, is he going to be released, right? Like they did trade a second round pick for him. I if he's available, I like the idea of like entertaining it, giving him a call. It sounds like he liked Chicago, and I think too, you do need a veteran presence in the room, and why not a future Hall of Famer? But
Mhm.
yeah, I'm not saying give away everything, obviously, but see what he's up for. See what he thinks about, like whatever he wants out there. So yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
Khalil, yeah,
I think with this team, and honestly, when we look at all these, uh they're mostly veterans. I mean, all these are usually 30-year-old plus guys. And yeah, when you think of veterans, you might want a handful of veterans, especially when you talk about our defense where it's all these young guys.
for sure.
But yeah, you want to sprinkle the veterans in and then have all these young talented guys, like maybe two or three veterans, and then so I'm fine with him, but yeah, just don't overspend. Because there's already talent in the front seven for free agency.
Yeah, and I think too, like going to what stands out, I guess for me, what stands out is that the the edge class, like the defensive ends, right? There wasn't a lot of good players that are going to be free agents, but if some of these people get released, now you're talking about it's not going to be like it's the greatest of all time, but you at least have some players that you can start entertaining, right? Shaquille Barrett out of Tampa Bay is someone that's kind of interesting to me. One thing, he's typically played out of a 3-4 system, but he is 250 pounds. So it's not like he's a lightweight player. He's 6'2, 250, and has done decently well getting 20 sacks in 2019 and 11 sacks in 2021. I think it would be interesting to see if he ends up getting cut. He's been a solid player, but yeah, there's some decent talent at this edge position. But PayPal, does
Mhm.
anybody really stand out to you in this list? Edge, linebackers.
Yeah, Frank Clark is kind of one of those guys. If the Bears got him, I wouldn't be overly excited, but I'd be like, okay, he's gonna do something good. He's due for 5 sacks in the season. He's not gonna do anything crazy, but he'll just be okay. Um, but he'll make big plays though. He won't, he'll definitely won't be unnoticed. Um, but honestly, the guy that I was excited when we heard about today was Bobby Wagner. I Obviously he's not as fast as he was, but he still has those instincts. He still has probably one of the best tackling forms in the entire NFL. He's one of the best tacklers. Um, and it would be kind of nice having kind of that veteran presence at the center of the defense when you have not to knock anything with Jack Sanborn, but he's young, he's a rookie, he's doesn't know everything yet. So having a guy like Bobby Wagner by his side, I think that would be a nice little duo. Not the fastest guys, but the smartest and have great instincts.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting point that you make too, because if you look at what he would get, right? I look to his contract that he signed with the Rams, 50 million for 5 years. So you would assume that it'd be around that 10 million. And when you think about Roquan Smith getting 20 million, seems like a steal, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
the still usually with cap casualties, you're not getting like people aren't cutting a top tier player, right? They're cutting them for a reason. Now, his stats weren't really up there, but he's still a very solid tackler, only a 2.9 missed tackle percentage, which is insane. So to me, yeah, like I'm all for it. Maybe try and bring in that vet and then you draft some players as well. But yeah, same thing. You got to kind of see what the market is out there because there's like these good Hall of Fame players like Mac and Bobby Wagner. It's going to be interesting to see what the market really kind of commands for him. Now, Wagner also is going to be 33 this year. That's high up there, and
Yeah.
he didn't get over 100 tackles. So, if for stats people out there, that's something that kind of is a big ding. But he was graded as an elite player according to PFF. So, even though that the stats didn't show it, if you watched his tape, if you watched him play, even though he's not as fast, he's still Bobby freaking Wagner,
Mhm.
right? So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, and
yeah,
honestly, Brad, yeah, I think you're gonna ask the question I was gonna kind of lead into. With both these guys, I don't think I'd be disappointed with any of them. I think Bud Dupree and then Romeo Akawara, Akawara, I would be kind of like maybe if the Bears got him, it would be kind of like Bud Dupree would have been a good guy to sign last year. You know what I mean? Like to get on the team,
yeah,
try him
yeah.
out, and then get him
Cut
off the
him, yeah,
team. Yeah,
move on.
but too on like I don't know if some of these guys wouldn't get signed till, are they gonna be kinda like that, what I wanna say, kinda like how Robert Quinn was for us, how like Odell, it's like they wait to be on a team for Super Bowl contenders, like are these kind of those
Yeah,
veterans that are gonna wait out and then get signed? Um, but I think any of these guys would help this team. It's just what price you wanna pay for them.
yeah, and I'll call out a couple other two. I think CJ Mosley is an interesting name. He's been a good linebacker throughout his career, but had this insane amount of money that he signed. He's going to be 31 this year, so probably can get a couple of good years out of him. Eric Kendricks would be interesting, like we mentioned. Minnesota, high salary cap, need to get rid of some people. Zach Cunningham being released. I'm always fascinated by him, PayPal, because he's like just a run stuffer. Like he can't cover, but he's like a very good run stuffer. He'd be an excellent Sam if he wants to be that, right? Just
Mm,
the base 4-3 linebacker at that Sam position. It'd be really interesting to see him out there, but I just don't think it's something. Um, and, this is just my entire feeling on it. I I would not go after Frank Clark. I wouldn't go after Aquara. I wouldn't go after a lot of these players. I would just try and swing for the fences with like one of these veterans because we signed a 5 sack a year player with Al Qadim Muhammad, right?
yeah.
And he didn't give us anything. So that's why I'm a little anti Frank Clark, anti Bud Dupree, anti those guys. And Michael Brockers is old. He's getting cut for a reason, I feel.
Yeah.
But it's going to be very interesting, at least from this defensive front seven. And like we said, some good names out there. But yeah, let us know down in the comments kind of what you guys are feeling for all those that are watching out there on YouTube. But PayPal,
Yeah.
let's switch on over to the other defensive side of the ball, the defensive backs. Defensive backs also has a large amount of people that will be out there. So the feeling, yet again, Scoured the internet. Some of these, I don't feel great about them being on my list, but we're going to be going through this, going through the defensive backs. At the corner position, there's Byron Jones out of Miami. There's Shaquille Griffin from the Jags, Michael Davis from the Chargers, Ronald Darby from the Broncos, Kenny Moore. I thought that kind of baffled me when I saw that on a handful of lists, but he had a bad season last year when Flus left. Coincidence? And William Jackson, the third cornerback from the Steelers, potentially. And then at the safety position, this is where I kind of scratched my head. Like we said, Vikings, a lot of caps, like a lot of cap. They need to get rid of some people. Harrison Smith is rumored. Huge contract, old player. Jaron Kearse, the safety from the Cowboys, and Malik Hooker, safety from the Cowboys as well. PayPal, who stands out to you?
There's honestly, Kenny Moore is probably the most attractive one on this list. A lot of these, I don't go like, wow, let's pick pick one of these guys up. Like, we need one of these guys. I mean, Byron Jones, I think he's a good cornerback, but with how the NFL is, he's just too short for me. Like, how corners, it just seems like you need to have like a 6 foot plus corner. And
Byron Jones is 6'1", just so you know. You might be thinking of a different guy.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking of some other Miami Dolphins cornerback. but hey, well, then we'll pick him up. But Harrison Smith is another guy. I hope we don't get him. I mean, I don't think we're even in the market for safeties. That's where Jaron Kearse, Malik Hooker, and Harrison Smith, I don't think we would even be really looking at them. But if we were, Harrison Smith, I think he's kind of hit his peak last year. You could tell he would try and do things that he would normally do back in the day, but he didn't have that speed to, either get the takeaway or get have the strength to get the sack or whatever. He just kind of has lost his spark. So stay away from those safeties. And Byron Jones, hey, maybe I have to read up on him or something. It could be our future corner.
I'm curious now. Now I got to be like researching some players. But yeah, with his actual size of 6'1", we know that we like big corners, but he was out all last year because of injury. He's that magical 30 years old. So we've seen 30-year-old corners drop off, but we've also seen 30-year-old corners like a Patrick Peterson continue to play. I think he's worth a look at because of his size, and we'll see what he's up to, because the contract was just way too much for the Dolphins, and that's a big reason why people are saying chances are he will be gone. But yeah, I agree with you with the safeties. At first, I was like, Malik Hooker, he's got the Indianapolis Colts connection. But yeah, like, what are you going to do with him? He is a safety that should be starting, but I'm not starting him over Eddie Jackson, right? Like, Eddie Jackson's Eddie Jackson, and Malik Hooker is frequently injured. He's a good safety, but he's not Eddie Jackson. I think that's a huge downgrade if you were to do that. If Malik Hooker can play special teams, then yeah, and he wants to take a little discount, sure. But yeah, the safeties, I agree with you. But Ronald Darby's a little short. Michael Davis is the right size, but I hope we don't get him because he's 6'2", 196, but just consistently hasn't been a great corner. But yeah, Kenny Moore is the big one for me. Kenny Moore played like the best slot corner all the years that he was with Matt Eberflus, and he signed that big contract. This is his third year that's going to be in that big contract. So at first I kind of scoffed it out. And then I was looking more into Kenny Moore's season last year. He was not good last season. So maybe I hope that he ends up getting cut, and I hope that he can come over to the Bears, because we've seen what he's been able to do with Eberflus. We have every single Indianapolis Colts coach that helped Kenny Moore be really good. He's 29 years old, so you're talking about maybe a 2-year, 3-year type of a deal. But yet again, a good slot corner that we could potentially have out there on this team. I like the idea of it, because I think that just now you talk about Kyler Gordon as an outside corner. You shift Gordon to the outside, and you have Jalen Johnson. Now, magically, your corner position, you feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to see, because Kyler Gordon, I think he's kind of proven that he could be kind of both,
Yeah.
cornerback spots last year. Because it's kind of fun seeing him in the nickel back spot where he's able to get, these tackles and be just closer to and be aggressive with, cornerback blitzes and all of that stuff, like showing off his athleticism. But I guess we'll see if they think Kenny Moore is kind of a fit. Like Eberflus is like, how the heck is he not, on the Colts anymore? Because he was like my favorite guy. But
Yeah.
again, who was also one of his favorite guys. I'm blanking on his name, the left end that we just cut.
Al-Qadim
Muhammad. Yeah. Like,
but one was actually good. Like Al-Qadim Muhammad's never been good. Like that's the thing I didn't get about that signing was like he was never, especially when you're lining up next to DeForest Buckner, right? Like,
right.
And you're only getting 5-6 sacks. Yeah.
Hey, that's another thing why it's just Frank Clark. I think he should honestly have more sacks. I mean, you have one of the best defensive linemen,
for real.
Good point in the game, and you're only getting 5 sacks. Like internal pressure like that makes it so easy for the edges. So
yeah, you have less people chipping. Yeah, I agree with you there. I think though the moral of the story for all of this, right? We went through the defensive front seven. There's some good linebackers that the Bears could potentially get, right? A good vet. A vet might be really nice to have just to kind of solidify that, kind of be the voice inside of that room, someone that a lot of these young players can look up to, that also gives you flexibility to sign or to draft some players at that linebacker position. But then also Khalil Mack might be a good player at that edge if we could bring him back. But it's always weird. You don't really see, I can't name a time besides on the Patriots when someone gets traded and if someone were to be cut and then goes back to that same team, because the Patriots, it's the scheme fit, right? So Khalil Mack would be interesting for sure. But like we said, defensive backs, Byron Jones potentially, but Kenny Moore would be someone really to look out for. So I hope you guys all learned something today. Just some of the players, yet again, majority of these players not cut, but there's a good chance that a lot of them are going to be cut. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure to stay right here at Unbearable Sports. Make sure to like, subscribe, search for Unbearable Sports everywhere that you get your podcasts. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we're out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a bad chick.